Thank you. Welcome. My name is Greg Young. I'm the chair of the Northborough Conservation Commission. And this open meeting of the Northborough Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of June 16th, 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. All members of the Northborough Conservation Commission are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows the Northborough Conservation Commission to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Tom Beals. Tom, you're muted. Mr. Beals. We'll move along, come back. Dan Clark.
Here.
Justin Dufresne.
Here.
Diane Gouldner.
Here.
Todd Helwig.
Here.
Tom Beals.
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mia McDonald.
Here.
Fred Litchfield.
Here.
Jim DiGiulio.
Here.
Very good. Some ground rules. For presenters and or applicants listed on the agenda, the chair will invite each speaker or applicant on the agenda by name to make a presentation and speak to their application. Participants will provide their full name and hold until their name is called. Each speaker will be asked to mute their phone or computer when not speaking and to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate meeting minutes. Those responding will be asked to wait until the floor is yielded to them by the chair. Speakers who wish to respond to the comments of others do so through the chair, taking care to identify themselves. Each vote taken by the commission will be conducted by roll call vote. For items with public comment, after members have spoken, I will afford public comment as follows. By phone, dial *9 to raise your hand and wait to be recognized by the chair. Please note that part of your phone number will be visible to those viewing the meeting. By Zoom, click raise hand on the bottom of your screen and wait to be recognized by the chair. I will ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify their names and addresses only. Once the chair has a list of all public commentators, I will call on each by name and afford 3 minutes for any comments. Diane, the public notice, if you would.
There will be a meeting of the Northborough Conservation Commission on Monday, August 16th, 2021 at 6 p.m. The meeting will include the following hearings pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, and the Northborough Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Request for determination of applicability for 136 Davis Street, map 95, parcel 1 and 2, by Leah Lucino for an after-the-fact expansion of an existing driveway and associated site work. A notice of intent for 89 School Street, map 73, parcel 36, by Damon Arcardi for the proposed addition of a patio to a single-family house with an existing lawn and associated site work. Notice of intent for West Street, right-of-way by Brant Viner and Margaret Harling for proposed extension and construction of an 8-inch water main and associated site work. That's that.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's start off with the July meeting minutes. Justin, you need to recuse yourself from, or not vote, because you weren't here. So we've got myself, Dan, Diane, Todd, and Tom. Any questions or comments on the July meeting minutes?
No, I can remember.
I move to approve the July meeting minutes.
Second.
Seconded by Diane. Roll call vote. Dan Clark.
Yes.
Diane Gouldner.
Yes.
Todd Helwig.
Yes.
Tom Beals.
Yes.
And I will vote yes. Very good. Okay. Stormwater bylaw, vote to adopt regulations. We have some folks here. We got Emily and Cassandra and Fred Litchfield. So Fred, you want to take the lead here and get this moving?
Sure, happy to. Good evening. Thanks for having us back again. We met last month and there weren't too many comments. We weren't quite finished. We have polished it up a little bit. We did get some feedback from Justin and Mia, and that I believe each of those comments have been addressed and incorporated into the version of regulations that I believe you all have, whether it's in front of you or not. I believe you all got it. I guess at this point, I think we've kind of talked it out quite a bit, and we're ready to entertain any last minute questions and ask you to vote and approve them.
Okay. Let me start with a few questions I have.
Okay.
The reference to mass stormwater management standards, is that something that we're still waiting for? That the state's kind of pulling that together?
Yes. We have the stormwater handbook and the stormwater handbook that's currently in place, but it's not consistent with the EPA regulation. So we have to carry something for when the DEP finally amends their stormwater handbook to bring it more in line with what the EPA is looking for in the stormwater permits.
So if and you and I had a conversation about this, I was a little concerned about additional administration burden being laid on Mia, yourself, and property owners. But is my understanding clear that if we have a project that is an acre or more and requires some clear cutting, and there's NOI filed for some sort of structure or project on that property, the land disturbance permit would be filed concurrently with the NOI, and they would track the same path?
That is correct. The only thing I'd point out is that 1 acre or more is land disturbance, not just 1 acre or more size site. So they have to be disturbing an acre of land in order to be required to get this permit. And if it is also requires a notice of intent under the local bylaw or the state regulations, it would all be done at the same time. So there's a little extra paperwork, but administratively it's not an additional burden as I can see it.
Fine. So a 3 acre lot, they're only going to disturb a third of an acre. No harm, no foul.
They're okay. They're still filing a notice of intent if they're within the jurisdiction of the commission, but they're not filing the permit under this bylaw or regulation.
Okay. Last question for me, the annual ops and maintenance plan. Is that forever?
Yeah.
So property owner has it in the feeling for 100 years, they're going to file 100 ops and maintenance plans?
As long as they own it for 100 years, I guess so. The whole goal is to make sure that the downstream impacts from the project post-construction are still being met and that there's no impacts to anybody downstream, whether it be a water body or an abutter.
I can see it happening for the first handful of years. It just seems like down the road, it seems to be a made-up exercise. But plus you have property sold, passed to heirs. The plan doesn't get filed. What do we do? Do they go to jail? What happens here?
Well, they, since we're on television, I'll refrain from that.
2 cents. That's it.
They are required to file a permit. The annual report's required. The permit will be recorded, much like the order of conditions, and entered into the chain of title. We're talking about projects that are fairly significant in size, and so it's not a single family home that where it might get dropped. It's generally a commercial or industrial project that it would be required, and then it should be maintained. We have adopted what we're proposing tonight is these regulations, and As you know, it's a fairly easy fix to hold a public hearing and amend them from time to time if we see that that becomes a problem and enforcement needs to be necessary. One of the things that we anticipate possibly doing in the future, if that became a problem, is that with every application for a land disturbance permit, that we could require a bond, a $5,000 bond, say, just to give a little financial incentive to the applicant to make sure that he files the appropriate forms and then he follows up with the appropriate annual report. And then if you feel as though it's necessary, that could be an ongoing condition. But I think there's a lot of awareness right now about stormwater going on in the country and in Massachusetts in general. I think that what we have to present to you tonight covers that, and I believe that we'll have compliance, but reserve the right to make amendments going forward if necessary.
Fair enough. So we would, looking at our past history on this commission, we would have had these in place for the Gutierrez warehouse developments.
We would have, yes.
And Mia, what
Yes.
about the property on West Main, on Main Street there, the two houses being built down? Was that an acre that they disturbed or not?
I think it is. I'd have to look.
It's a borderline on that one.
I think
Yeah.
they're 20,000 square foot lots, but I think there's a significant sizable resource area in the back. So they may not have triggered that
Right.
40,000 square feet. But with the filing of a notice of intent, you would be able to tell and have that disturbed area calculated for you at submission.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Okay.
Any more questions from the commission? Nope. Nope.
Oh, wait,
Mia, it's a public hearing. I'm sorry. Somebody had a comment?
that was me. Is there some way to put those operation and maintenance plans requests, say on a sign somewhere that would indicate to people going through town that that needs to be done, or somehow make it more noticeable, maybe at town meeting?
You mean
As a reminder.
you mean like a billboard on the property?
No, I'm saying like that electric sign downtown, maybe just something on there to flash on once in a while, or at town meeting to remind people. Because I assume we must get a few of those coming to town meeting. I don't know,
Well,
just a question.
well, the goal is to make sure that the owner of the property and the facility manager is aware of the condition to file the annual report, not necessarily the public in general. Am I missing the
Right.
point? So,
No,
so by putting it in the chain of title, much like the order of conditions, I think that we get the attention of the facilities manager or the property owner. And that's where we need to focus our attention on them rather than the general public, I guess.
okay,
Again, at least for now, so that going forward in a few years, or even next year, if we see that it's a problem, we can hold a public hearing, amend the regulations, and put something in there that is a little bit more stringent and cumbersome for the applicant to kind of help them get incentive to file the annual report.
okay. Thank
All
you.
set, Diane?
Yes, thank you.
Mia, public hearing here. Yes, so we should probably take,
I have a question first that I wanted you to consider. Section 9, I think subsection 6 requires a $50 fee with submission of your annual inspection report, and that's with a timely submission. And we were talking about penalizing people and incentives. And I'd like to suggest, but I'd also like to get your feedback. I'm open to either, but I feel like people should be rewarded for submitting in a timely manner. And if they submit by February 15th, it should be free. And if they don't submit by February 15th, maybe a $50 fee. And that, Fred and I were talking about different ways, different incentives. And one of them was that $5,000 bond that after submission of your first annual report, the bond is released. So that gets you in the habit. And we're looking at internal controls too. If, the town of Westboro has a website where you would update your contact information. Letters are going to go out in January or even sooner if our deadline is February 15th, reminding people that these reports are due administratively. And these are going to slowly build. Once we put these regulations in place, I just want to be clear that we're not going to go backwards and start doing these for the existing stormwater systems. This is this point going forward, permits that come in after this point. Other housekeeping for existing sites, Fred and I will have to deal with that and the capacity of that. But as far as sites that come in, it's from now on, after they're enacted, after they're put in place, sites that are over 1 acre, that's going to start our spreadsheet, our list of people who require those reports. So at first it's going to start small and get larger as the years go by. And we'll be sending out the letters to remind people to submit those reports. And I'd like to hear what the commission has to say, if you don't mind, about that $50 fee.
So my comment would be, we should at least be collecting something for a fee for the staff. And if it's late, it should be increased.
Okay.
I think the other thing we should do is, if they're going to post a bond and submit, we probably should hold that bond for like 3 years. So we get 3 years of consecutive reports before we let them off the hook, off the bond. That's my.
Those are good ideas. So maybe a $50 fee for a timely submission and a $100 fee for a late submission.
Yes. Yep.
I can go with what Tom just said.
I think for what it's worth, I think the $50 fee is for the annual report is fine. It's not cumbersome for an applicant of a project that's an acre or more of land disturbance. Not sure $100 fine for being late is much of incentive. I think we have some language in there for failure to cooperate or failure to file. We have some enforcement stuff that we could do for various amounts of time. I think, again, what I'd propose is maybe keep the $50 fees just so that there's something that comes with the application. It can, if the commission's all opposed to that, we're okay with it, but I would say leave it in and then and see how it goes. And if in fact that we do find that submission of the reports are not coming in a timely manner when the first permits are due at the end of the year, then I think we hold a public hearing and we require that bond. And perhaps, as Tom suggested, we make sure that the applicant is aware that a $5,000 bond or whatever the value is determined to be at that time is held for 3 years so that we get a couple of years of compliance under our belt. So the annual report, as I understand it, is a fairly new component to the stormwater regulations. I'm not quite sure how all the other communities are dealing with it. My recommendation would be is that we stand pat with the regulations as they are and then wait to adjust as we see necessary.
Works for me.
Seems reasonable.
And we can condition that bond on sites. You know, it doesn't have to be in the regulations. You can add it as a condition of the permit if you feel like you want to do that 3-year bond.
Well, there's a couple of things that go into play in the permit. One is you can have a bond, much like the earthwork board does, for during construction. And then this bond that we're talking about is to ensure compliance with the annual reporting later on. So when we're issuing the permit, we may not, I'm sure you're going to get people that are intending to cooperate at that point. It's not until 12 months later or the next February when the report's due that we may find some resistance or avoidance to file an annual report. But certainly you have the full latitude to add conditions that you feel are appropriate when the permit is before you, the application.
Any more questions from the commission? Let's see if we have any.
So, yeah, Fred, I guess the one question I have is, do we have the option, obviously, based on the scale of the project, to require a bigger bond and then a bond reduction after it's complete? and just hold that, like a 5,000 for the, like 3 years.
I believe we have that flexibility. We also have factored in there that if it's a very large project, say perhaps like we had at the shopping center where Wegmans is and BJ's, we do have the ability to have an outside consultant come in and do the review for the commission and offer their thoughts rather than doing it in-house. We're set up to have a $250 fee for every application, in-house review unless it's deemed too big, too large, or burdensome at that particular time on staff, so that in that event, we can then go out and then we can also, as part of that peer review, have a bond recommendation for the size of the project. And I would expect if it's sizable and it's 100 acres or something like that, although there aren't that many tracts of land left, there would be a phasing plan, and then we could work a bond. The phasing of the bond could be incorporated with the phasing of the construction as well. But again, you have all that flexibility once you have the public hearing and to see what's before you. I think in general, what you're going to have is maybe 1 or 2 of these applications per year that might be beyond what you would normally get with the Wetlands Protection Act and the local bylaw.
So could we do the kind of same concept that we do for earth removal in calculating the bond based on disturbance?
I believe we can, as well as the critical thing on this permit is the stormwater system itself, making sure that it's built appropriately in the bond to make sure that it's built even before at the same time as the land disturbance has taken place. I think we have that flexibility, yes. And I'm looking to Cassandra and Emily to jump in if I'm overstepping here. Okay, so I guess we're good. Pretty much whatever you want to do once you get them before you, as long as it's tied to land disturbance and stormwater.
Trying to think about what we've seen this year to date, what we would have seen with this on.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Tom.
It was more so when we get to that point, what are we going to use for a method to calculate the bond? That was all. Instead of us trying to figure it out when we get our first applicant in there, that's all.
Well, first of all, I expect it'll be something staff will do. And the other thing I would recommend that you keep in mind is that this does not eliminate the need for that applicant to go to the earthwork board and get that permit as well. This is not replacing that. This is in addition to meet our requirements with the federal stormwater program. And this is more to do with stormwater than it is just land disturbance, but it'll be a belts and suspenders kind of thing. And we will, me and I will work it out and have something. I'm not envisioning it being like the earthwork board where we go in and calculate it the night of the meeting on the spot. It'd be something that we would do in advance and submit to all of you for review and to the applicant as well, so they know what's coming when they come into the meeting. But it would depend on the project. And if there's a phasing plan, if there's we would clearly encourage them to install the erosion control and the stormwater system initially rather than at the end of the project. And therefore you could bond a higher amount initially and then give them money back as soon as that's done, and kind of, return it in phases so that they're, ultimately only holding a few thousand, depending on the size of the project. But we can use the bonding to help incentivize them to do the right thing and put those stormwater basins in and do the overall drainage in the summertime and late and early fall, so that it's prepared for the winter time, depending on when the project is before you.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Fred, what I was going to say is I think the only project we've seen to date here that might trigger this would, and it would be grandfathers, we're not going to do it, would be the maybe the development on West Street.
Yes.
Maybe, because there's
that of the most recent ones, that would probably be more than an acre. And again, what we would do is we would require them to file their proposed land disturbance area with their notice of intent and with their application for the land disturbance permit. At least with the notice of intent, they could say, well, we're only disturbing, 39,000 square feet, and here's how we justified it. And it comes with the NOI, and then you look at it, and if you agree, great, you issue an order of conditions. If you don't agree, you send them back to modify it and get the land disturbance application into you right away.
I don't see any hands up or question from the public here. It looks like that's done. What are the next steps after the vote here tonight?
We will print up some regulations and start putting the word out there. When me and I participate in many development review meetings, very few applicants, although it does happen occasionally, submit an application without first talking to one of the staff members. If that were to happen, if somebody were to file and wasn't aware of this, we would give them a call and make them aware of it. We are working with our consultant, get some applications put together, standard permit package and how it would be worked in with the order of conditions. So we're working on that paperwork administratively now and should have it before the first application comes in. I'm not aware of anybody who's in the pipeline directly right now that this would apply to, but there's always people out there looking at stuff that we don't know about as well. But we generally hear about it before it gets submitted, and we'll relay the message that this is required going forward right now.
Okay, thank you. All right, we need to vote here. So we need a motion.
Because I will move to, as I'm trying to phrase this correctly, move to approve the, what are we calling these things? The stormwater bylaw as presented this evening.
The stormwater management regulations dated August 16, 2021, I think would be the target wording that you're looking for.
I'll go with that target wording. So moved.
Second,
Seconded by Tom Beals. Roll call. Tom Beals,
yes.
Dan Clark,
Yes.
Justin Dufresne,
Yes.
Diane Gouldner,
Yes,
Todd Helwig.
Yes.
I will vote yes. Done.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time, patience, and thoughtful questions. Anything comes up in the next few months, you be sure and talk to me.
Fair enough.
He's not far.
You know
No.
where he lives too. so-
I'll be right here. All right.
Thank
Good
you,
night,
Fred.
everyone.
Thanks, folks. Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you, Emily. Okay, so Mia, 161 Church Street, they're continuing, right?
Yes, they've requested to continue to September 13th.
Same with 0 Hudson Street, they're continuing.
Yes.
Did we reach agreement with them on the flagging?
I went out and walked it and they're picking up the new flags and I haven't received your revised plan yet.
And also the NOI for West Street, the right of way for the main, that request a postponement. We're not even going to open
Yes.
that piece. Okay, good.
That's right.
136 Davis Street.
Actually, Greg, you have to vote on those.
We can vote on them.
Yes.
Okay.
To
Can we
vote to
all
allow
at
them
once?
to
We
continue.
vote all at once?
Yeah, you can do all at once. To
So-
continue 161 Church Street, to continue the notice of intent for 0 Hudson Street, and to postpone the notice of intent for West Street right of way to the September 13th meeting.
But we never opened the West Street one.
That's right. So it's postponing the opening of the hearing.
So moved.
There was seconded on that from Diane. Roll call. Tom,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Justin,
Yes.
Diane,
yes,
Todd,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay. We good to move now, yes? Now we're going to 136 Davis Street.
That's right.
This is a, after the fact, this is an RDA. We talked about it a little bit last month. This is the actual request for it. And I believe we have, let me see, I believe we have Leah with us. I will bring her in. Hey, Jim, I'm not able to bring Leah into the meeting.
Sorry about that. I just ended the Board of Selectmen meeting, so I am promoting to panelists and I don't see it moving either.
Oh.
Oh, there we
There
go.
we go.
There's Leah.
Hi, I'm here. It's Leah.
Great. You're great. Thank you, Leah. Okay, Mia. So we talked about this last month. Why don't you do a quick summary here?
Sure. So this is Leah Lucino. Am I saying that right, Leah?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Leah Lucino, she hired an excavator to repave and expand her driveway slightly. The expansion is about 54 feet from the wetlands, the edge of the expanded driveway. So it would have required a request for determination. The contractor should have let her know and should have assisted her with the filing. It was reported to our office and she has since filed an after the fact for the expansion of the driveway. The biggest concern area was down by the street that the contractor had parked his excavator there and disturbed some area within the 25-foot. He smoothed it out and Greg and Diane and I visited, it's already regrowing. So Leah did take the steps, she paid the fee, notified abutters. So we do want to make sure we receive public comment, but as far as I'm concerned, I recommend that it's satisfied and the project is just regrowing now.
Anybody wants to, do we need for pictures? Anybody want to see pictures? We haven't seen them before.
Yes, no?
Yes, no, maybe.
No,
Yes, no pictures. Let me double check here if we have any butters. Nope. Okay, questions, comments from the commission on the RDA? No questions, comments. So I believe we are looking, we're going to take a vote on this. I believe we're looking for a negative determination. Is that correct? With
That's right.
the steps that have already been done per Mia's direction. So we need a motion for the negative determination of an RDA for 136 Davis Street.
I think that was a trick question. Don't we need to close the hearing first?
Nope, this is a RDA.
Oh, yeah.
So close.
Well, then I'll move issue the negative determination of applicability for 136 Davis Street.
okay,
Second.
Seconded by Diane. I think just stuck in under the gun.
Yeah, it's good.
Tom Beals,
Yes.
Dan Clark,
Yes.
Justin Dufresne,
Yes.
Diane Goldner,
yes,
Todd Helwig,
Yes.
and I will vote yes.
Thank you, Leah, for working with us.
Great. So in layman's terms, does this mean I'm all set?
Yep. You'll receive a copy of the negative determination in the mail. If you have any other work over there, just give us a call and I can let you know whether or not it needs a permit.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mia, for all of your help.
Thank
Leah,
you.
there's one more thing you have to do for us now that you have this. Anytime you see a backhoe in anybody's yard, you call me or let her know the address.
Okay, I'll keep that in the back of my mind.
Very good. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks
Bye,
for working
everyone.
with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, it is growing in pretty well. It does. You did a good job on that. Okay, we're going to talk about 89 School Street now. And I do believe we want to bring in, let's see if Mitch is with us. Got a consultant. It must be Mitch. Yep.
And then I see Arcadia Financial Group. Is that the applicant?
So,
Okay. The hands up.
Cardi.
So yes, I believe let's bring them in
Yes.
too.
same last name as the applicant.
It's not Mitch, but that's okay. We know that face from Goddard Consulting. So that's one person. All right. And yes, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
All right, 89 School Street. Leah, Mia, you want to set us up on this one?
We can start presenting. Go ahead. I can share my screen if you'd like.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mark Garner with Goddard Consulting here on behalf of Damon Keller. pardon my pronunciation, Cariati, for 89 School Street in Northborough. This is a notice of intent application for a proposed patio in the rear of an existing single-family house. We have on the site, we have bordering vegetated wetlands, a riverfront from a perennial river, as well as bordering lands subject to flooding. So those resources were delineated by Goddard Consulting. We prepared a plan for the commission showing the wetland resources along with the riverfront, and then interior to the wetland area, and I believe on the edge is BLSF, based on a no floodplain elevation by FEMA. That's the general gist of the property. There's a existing house again. There's an existing deck in the back with stone underneath it, along with lawn and some landscaping along the edge. The intention of the project is to keep the patio all within the existing disturbed areas, principally underneath the existing deck area, which this figure before you shows me. If you zoom in, you can see we've kind of highlighted two different sections. One section is the dark red hatch with the yellow line squared around it in that right-hand corner of the house. That area is underneath the existing deck. It's an existing pea stone area right now. In the deck, the purple box, gray box, is an existing staircase that comes down to the lawn. And then the orange is an additional patio area, which is main goal is to connect the patio under the deck to the driveway, as well as provide a hard surface from the driveway to the staircase. The reason why the project mainly came to fruition was because there's a lot of heavy traffic from the deck area to the driveway and underneath the deck area, which is basically making it very difficult to maintain lawn in that area, to an extent where you're starting to get bare soil, which is hard to maintain and keep growing green unless you start using products and stuff like that. And so the goal here, here we go. Thank you, Mia. Photo 1 is a great example. It's in your notice of intent package showing the area where we want to put the patio. And you can see the bare patches, particularly from the driveway there going towards the staircase, again, just because of the heavy traffic, kids running around, stuff like that, particularly going up and down that staircase to there. So the goal is, again, to kind of create a hardscape area on this flat section of the lawn, along with underneath the patio, to create some usable space that's a little easier to maintain than the existing lawn, just because of the heavy traffic that is occurring. We do have work within the 25-foot buffer to the wetlands, which is under your bylaw, and we do understand that does require a waiver, which we're requesting. All work is within the existing disturbed areas. There's no tree clearing, no shrub clearing, no native herbaceous vegetation. It's all within existing lawn or below an existing deck. So from that perspective, it's a very small, minor project, and yet because we're in the 25-foot and very close to wetlands, we filed a notice of intent with the commission requesting that this work would be permitted. We do have comments from Mia, which we did receive this past week, which were very constructive, and we appreciate that. We do want to respond to those in writing, but our hope tonight was to have a good constructive meeting with the commission to glean any other comments that they may have, and then move forward with providing you with additional information that may be necessary.
Mia, do you have any pictures of when we were there, of that area we were talking about that's close to the boundary?
Let me get those up. Can you see it?
Yes, we're landing the airplane here. We want the airplane to go toward the hangar and not toward the terminal there. Okay.
Chairman added for scale.
Yep. Okay. And I don't know if this was in your questions already, Mia, that you've given them, but one of the comments that I think we had was our preference would be to try and get back away from the edge of the lawn, not get any further. So You see up here, we have that mulchy area up there where the cursor is. And if you extend that line roughly down to this rock on the far left, we were thinking that might be a good idea for the edge of the patio. And from there on to put something in like some bushes or something to separate the area from the actual wetland.
So it basically is an enhanced buffer to the wetlands that also provides good stabilization for that slope. That's not landscaping mulch. Is that what you're saying, Mr. Chairman?
Pretty much, yep.
Yeah, I'd agree, Greg. That was kind of one of my first thoughts, was if we could just pull it back from that slope that dives down there a little bit, just, give us a little bit of room, and then put some native plantings or something in there to kind of keep people away from that edge a little bit more. I don't think it has to sacrifice too much of the patio, but maybe just pulling it back a little bit just to provide that buffer.
It looks like only to be a couple of feet from here, maybe 3 max, but
Does that area need to remain grass back there that you're talking about? Or can the grass be removed and plants be put in? It'll be hard to get a mower back there.
No, I think it'd be better to get rid of the grass, right, Greg? Get rid of the grass and get some native plantings instead of the grass. Yeah, that way you don't have to maintain it or anything too. Just kind of let it naturalize a little bit.
Perfect.
like almost like an extension of what you have up there before. Would bring that down, and you'd have some planting, then maybe some mulch in between the planting and the grass.
Sure.
And rocks. I mean, almost just bring that line down.
Great.
That was my main comment.
Just so I'm clear, I guess. So we're asking that the patio it doesn't go into the 25-foot buffer at this point. Is that what we're asking?
I think it's already, yeah, we're gonna pull it back a bit. Looks like it's inside the 25-foot buffer as it is, Dan. I mean, that looks like that grass is already there.
No, but the actual patio, where's the patio going to be?
Right there, that yellow, the yellow with the 6-sided circles in it, I think is the patio, right?
So there's existing lawn already in this area.
Yeah.
Within the 25.
Okay.
And so, we were discussing not extending beyond the existing lawn. And then additionally, putting a buffer between the natural area that's there. And then within the existing lawn area, put a buffer, the natural plantings, and then pull this patio line back.
See, okay.
I think that's what Greg, is that correct, Greg?
And I believe that the plan was to use some sort of pervious surface, right? Some sort of.
Yes, travertine.
Correct.
So we would like a spec for that, some type of, it doesn't have to be specific. Once you select it, we can condition that you provide it, because we just want to know for ongoing operation and maintenance that a pervious surface really was selected and it's being maintained.
Absolutely. We can definitely provide that detail on the plan.
Anything else from the commission? Any more questions or concerns?
I guess my only comment is I assume that we're going to approve a waiver to the setbacks, which it's not really a structure. It's just a patio. So I'm okay with it. And it's already a pre-existing lawn area.
If I can, there are a lot of overlapping resource areas here, and your current setbacks 25 and 35. In the past, you have allowed, we've had some septic replacements and driveways that were already pre-existing within that 25 and 35. You also have in the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, This would be exempt under riverfront area. Conversion of lawn to a patio would be an exempt project. So you do have work here, you have site work within the riverfront area, and we do have the local bylaw. So it's really what we need to look at. And then as far as your waiver, in the past, the precedent has been that you allow a waiver within the 25 or 35 with mitigation. And I do believe that those plantings, conversion of this existing lawn into plantings, which would provide a buffer between the patio and the natural area there, the wetland beyond, would provide that mitigation. So you'd be following with what you've done before.
Thank you. That was what I was looking for.
Mia, do you have any more questions for them that were outside of what we're talking about here, which is really the bringing stuff back, moving things back?
Let me just take a look at my comments.
We do need to check with Fred. He's working on double checking anything with the infiltration capacity and impervious surface in the lot. So we are in communication with Fred about that. So we do understand that does need to be addressed. The other thing that Mia mentioned was she wanted a detail of the erosion control on the plan, which we can definitely make sure it gets on there. The other question was the BLSF elevation. So it's an unmapped BLSF from my understanding, looking at the Oliver GIS. So we do have a small section of the patio right now. It's going to be pulled back slightly. Looks like in the BLSF, we're not proposing any grading changes. As you can tell, the lawn was pretty flat from the lawn area to the area of the underneath the deck. So our plan intention is to basically you remove the topsoil and the subsoil, and then you build the patio from there up to have the patio basically match existing grade all around that area.
There's gonna be too much digging, right? More scraping that surface, I would think. Right?
Correct. It's really going to be excavation, removal of topsoil, and then the bringing in of aggregate to create your sub base for good infiltration along with your pervious patio.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing so far is we need to see on the plan the new patio location, the vegetative buffer, the impervious surface calcs, which are more communication with Fred, the details of the erosion controls, and it could be a note that there will be no fill, like that the patio will match the existing grade, so that we make sure there's no fill in the bordering that's subject to flooding.
Correct. We can definitely do that.
Any more questions from the commission or comments? Pretty straightforward, I think. Let's see if we have any. We don't have any hands up with the audience. Okay, so Mia, are we going to continue this? Or are we going to vote this with if it gets passed with based on conditions of you receiving certain things? What do you think?
Not sure. I mean, there's a lot of notes that need to go on the plan. I'd like to hear from the owner, from Mr. Accardi, if you're comfortable with all these changes. So I wouldn't want it to get approved, close the hearing, and then he says, well, I don't really like that buffer, and I really wanted the patio over here. Then we have to open the hearing again, re-notify abutters. So we want to make sure we're all on the same page. It is a lot of changes and comments. It might be safer to continue it after we see the revised plans, but I'm not sure if you have someone lined up to do the work next week or something like that.
I think we're more than comfortable with that, bringing that back. That's very reasonable, and we thank you for being reasonable. And we have no problem with the conditions. We do not have a contractor scheduled till October, but we anticipate probably having to shell out the money for the materials before then. So if we could get a conditional yes, I think we would be appreciative.
My personal opinion is I don't see any problems with it. But I would like to see it continued so that we have the full plans.
That's kind of where I am too. On that.
I agree.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think, for Mr. Accardi's benefit, I think we're all on the same page, just kind of getting that paperwork at the September meeting. So I think, probably comfortable just lining up your contractor and stuff like that. We'll hopefully button this up in September.
Thank you guys very much.
Worries. Thank you. Mark, you're clear, right? Mark Arnold, you're clear what has to happen?
Yep, yeah, I got my notes. We should be able to make those changes. And again, Mia will communicate with you to make sure that things are spot on.
Okay, we need a motion to continue to September 13th.
I so move that we continue until September the 13th.
Second.
Roll call. Tom Beals,
Yes.
Dan Clark,
Yes.
Justin Dufresne,
Yes.
Diane Goldner,
Yes.
Todd Helwig.
Yes.
I vote yes.
Thank you
Okay.
so much. Have a good night.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you, Mia.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
And Greg, I think Jeff P is Jeff Peters from 4 West Street that we met today.
Yes. I want to bring this up in the agenda. Let's bring. Hey, Jim DiGiulio,
Yes,
how come I can't bring somebody in?
I'm not. Oh, sorry. I don't believe I made you co-host.
Could you bring?
Sorry
could you-
about that.
It's all right. Could you bring the only person out there right now, please, Mr. Jeff P.
Absolutely, moving them over now. And you are a co-host now, so you do have the powers again.
All right. So this is a quick discussion on some tree cutting at 4 West Street, which if you go in West Street from, I guess that's Church, it's the first house on your right going in there. Mia called me this morning and we met on site with Mr. Peters and Mia. I'll let you take it from there.
Okay, so this site also has a lot of overlapping resource areas. Maybe I'll pull it up on the town GIS before I do the pictures. You're probably all familiar with the site. It's at the corner of Church and West Street. Zoom in
Jeff
here.
Peters has joined us.
So it's this site here at the corner of Church and West. There is a perennial stream going through, so the entire site is riverfront area. Let me show you the aerial, and you can see a lot of it is vegetated, this whole corner, and the house is over here on West Street. And you can even see some of the dead trees in this picture. So under a normal circumstances, your tree policy actually still says 15 feet. Any trees within 15 feet of the wetland. We touched on that briefly when we changed it to 25, and you had chosen to stay with 15 because you want to allow homeowners to manage their trees under administrative approval, that every single hazard tree that comes in shouldn't have to file a permit. And so under the administrative approval, I can allow a homeowner to remove 2 to 3 hazard trees as long as they're 15 feet from the wetlands. So in this case, Mr. Peters has found 28 hazard trees. And I did walk the site with him, and they're all 15 feet from the stream and any bordering vegetated wetlands, but they're all within riverfront area. But I would like to show you the trees because this is something, if we had done 2 or 3 trees at a time, each one could be administratively approved in clusters of 2 to 3. But he obviously is going to bring a tree person in all at one time because he's not going to want to pay someone to come back that many times. So let me pull up those photos. Can you see the screen?
Mhm.
Okay, so these are just to the right of the house. There's 5 dead oak trees in here that succumb to gypsy moths. And all the trees are hazardous. They're all going to either fall because of the way the site is situated. There's power lines. This is his septic field. And then there's Church Street. So all the trees pose a safety hazard if and when they fall. So this cluster, and you can kind of see it back here, will fall on his septic field. They're all leaning that way. This is along West Street. You can start to see some of the trees there, so you can see it better from the other angle. This is Church. You can see some of the dead trees in here and in here. They're going to fall into the street. Here we are again. This is the top of West. Those are those same dead trees we saw. And then these trees here, can you see how they're wrapped in vines? So most of the leaves on them are poison ivy. And they're almost completely covered and they're leaning towards the power lines. There's a better picture. Here we go. So these have really started to lean. There's some bark falling off the bottom and the base is completely choked by poison ivy. And you can see how they're really just going to take those power lines right out. There's another picture of the same grouping. Back to the beginning. This is a close-up of some of the dead trees within. They're still over 70 feet tall and will make it. So I'd like to recommend an administrative approval of all 28 dead trees with at least half left at 15-foot snags, dropped in place, and no equipment entering the wetlands. But I had Greg come out. This all came in today. Mr. Peters had let me know there were some trees, and then he stopped into the office today. And I went out there with Greg and we took a look at them. And we wanted to get your feedback before we approved it.
I would approve it. I did the same thing about when the gypsy moths were around. We took out, I think, 8 trees. They were mostly the oaks. There's still one back there my neighbor hasn't taken out, but it's on his property, not mine.
Mm-hmm.
And I think too, there's going to be other trees that'll show up later that they might want to consider tagging, at least for future reference.
And he's not proposing any installation of lawn or clearing. He plans on leaving the wood in there unless the stockpiling becomes excessive, and they'll be dragged out by hand.
I think it's all reasonable, makes sense, and I have no objections to it.
Yeah, same here.
Fine with me.
Fine with me too.
I do these all the time, but it's usually, I mean, I've done up to 4 trees. So I'm like, I only went over.
It was the number of 28 trees I kind of said, well, let's bring it in front of the commission tonight before we go ahead and go forward. So, yeah. Okay, so we seem to have a consensus. Todd, you good?
Yep.
Okay, I think everybody else has said they're fine in this one. No, a lot of nodding heads. So it sounds to me like we're good on this one. Do we want to vote this or not? Or is this just a discussion?
It's just a discussion. I'll submit the administrative approval. Did Jeff want to say anything?
Thank you.
There you go.
Oh.
Okay, that's it. Short and sweet, right to the point. There we go.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Peters. Good luck.
Yeah, thank you for coming in advance.
Yes. We do appreciate that, don't we? All right. Now I'm going to move Jeff. There we go. All right. All right. Moving down the line here. We have 3 certificates, Mia, right? I think none of them are controversial.
No.
Bartlett, West Main, and Howard and Washburn.
Okay, so 30 Bartlett Street was a septic replacement in 2005. The site was stable. I observed no violations. It was constructed as approved and received an as-built. Do you want to do them one at a time?
Let's go through them and see what we can vote them all at once if there's they're
Okay.
all pretty
Then-
straightforward.
78 West Main Street was, it's right on Main Street up near the center of town. They had gotten an order of conditions to do a project, an expansion on the building and redo drainage and parking. None of the work was ever done and the order is expired. And they're not interested in doing the work. So they're just looking to take the work off the deed. The last one is Harrington Lane. They were doing, it's a kind of a cul-de-sac off of Washburn Street, and their order expired and they came back in for a new order and they got a new order, and I should have noticed that we should have closed out the old order. So now they're trying to sell one of the lots and this came up. And so they want to close the old order. It's currently all the existing remaining work. Remember, they did a partial COC and now everything's covered under the new order. So trying to close that off to sell one of the lots.
The new order is already in effect.
Yes.
Is this the one with the concrete house?
Yeah. Yeah. The house with I think it has geothermal and.
Okay, so if there's any questions on any of these three, we can deal with them now. Otherwise, let's move ahead with for 30, 78 and Howard and Washburn all at once, right?
Yep.
So moved.
Second,
And by Tom. Okay, we're voting on the three of them. Tom Beals,
yes.
Dan Clark,
Yes.
Justin Dufresne,
Yes.
Diane Gouldner,
yes,
Todd Helwig.
Yes.
I vote yes. All right. Mia, before we get to Whitney Street, I want to just talk about the Watson Park funding first.
Oh, thank you. Good idea.
You're looking for some money from the Conservation Fund for paving Watson Park's driveway.
I can't remember if I brought this up to you guys before. The Trails Committee brought up that Watson Park was getting a little dilapidated, lots of trash, and it was really getting hard to pave. In fact, Steve Jobs from the Water Department, he lives nearby there. He mows the wells over there, and he also mows Watson. He comes over with the mower, and he brought it up to the Trails Committee and said, this park needs some attention. It's owned by the Water Department, managed by Conservation Commission historically. We've done a lot of work. Trails Committee reblazed and re-cleared the trails, cleared away some debris. I've been picking up the trash. Fred helped me get a wheelie bin down there that's being emptied every week. It looks great. I installed a trail camera. I've checked it twice. Haven't seen any illicit activity other than some like late night drive-ins. It is used so much. That's what the trail camera has shown, is that every single day of the week, morning, noon, and night, there are people down there kayaking, fishing, walking their dogs, riding their mountain bikes, taking a break from work. I did not realize how well used this park was. And so it just looks brighter and better. But the loop down at the bottom, there is a state boat ramp that's covered under the Office of Fishing and Boating. And so as part of our agreement with that office under Fish and Wildlife is that they would maintain access to it, or the loop at the bottom. The boat ramp is in great condition, but the loop, Steve said he plows it as well. He plows the wells and he plows the access road and loop. He couldn't even plow the bottom of the loop because it's so deteriorated. I do have some pictures I can show you. And so the State Office of Boating and Fishing has offered to pay for the loop. Well, the access road is also deteriorated. So we would like to see that paved. It's not as bad as the loop, but we would like to see it also fixed. And let me see if I can get those pictures of the road. There we go. Oh, this is me trying to convince the state. So I did convince the state to pay for some of the access road. So the access road is 2/3, the loop is 1/3 in linear feet. State's paying for the entire loop. They're willing to pay for half of the access road. So the total project cost is about $75,000. So the loop's 25, access road is 50. We're on the hook for 25. So we'll pay 25, receive 50 from the state, and be able to pave the whole thing this year. We'd be able to use DPW contracts, just like their tree removal. They have a tree removal contractor. They also have a paving contractor. So we'll be able to go in under the town's contract with them and just pay them. We got a cost estimate from that contractor. It's already bonded, insured, ready to work. We just need $25,000 from the Conservation Fund. This is definitely an allowed use of the Conservation Fund and management, because I wanted to make sure, since you don't own it, but it is an allowed use for you to do operation and maintenance of lands that you manage. You don't have to own them.
Where did the money come from?
What money?
Where did the $25,000 that you're going to spend, how did it get in the account in the first place?
So I think it got in through fees that went in, donations, and interest.
So it's not CPC money.
It's not CPC. See, all the CPC was voted in. Actually, I should say Trails Committee has some money that was voted in for maintenance, but they don't have $25,000. And all the CPC was put in for land protection. All of that is specifically earmarked by town meeting.
Okay, fine with me
What's-
then. That,
What's our balance in that fund? Do you have any idea? In the
I
conservation
think it's
fund?
47. Let me,
That was going to be my question, if we were going to be depleting our account, that's all.
this is 9/3/2020. I don't get monthly statements. Let me see. It was, I think it's 68,000 after we paid for Bartlett Pond. We paid for the treatment of Bartlett Pond from it.
That does get replenished through,
No,
well, through
I don't think
fees, right?
so. Yeah, through fees. We'll have to, most of the fees now go into the general fund and then they end up paying my salary, but it doesn't cover my salary.
If we say no, what happens?
It just won't get paved.
Any
We'd
of
have
it
to-
or a third of it?
I don't think any of it would get paved. Yeah, we'd have to do the whole thing.
And I'm sorry, we got a state matching of 50%?
So they're doing the entire loop at the bottom and they're willing to pay for 50% of the access road. And so I ran the numbers by them that they would be paying 50 and we'd be paying 25. And they're willing to do that.
Oh, okay,
Because if you can't get to the loop, it's not really much good.
right.
Sounds fine to me.
If it gets as much use as you're talking about, me, it seems like a good investment on our part, not to keep it accessible and for people to use it. Especially with the state.
It's always seems to be busy there. It just seemed like there was some illicit activity, but maybe that's trailed off.
I'm not seeing it as much. It has been, there's tons of high schoolers hanging out at the picnic tables and our upgrades are still ongoing. It's now on our Boy Scout, we have those Eagle Scouts and Scouts who come in looking for service projects. This is on the repair of the picnic tables. Long-term Trails Committee is thinking maybe getting a handicapped accessible fisherman's access, at another point that, this is a bigger project down the line. And historically, Watson Park, I don't know if any of you remember, it was deeded to the town. It was part of the Bartlett Pond Association and the Conservation Commission. I want to say back in the 80s, maybe Diane or Tom, you might remember this. There was a huge landscape plan for this to be much more of a recreation facility. But that takes a lot of money. So this is actually phase one, the boat ramp, the loop, the picnic tables. It never really moved on to phase two. I think they were going to do phase one, see how much it was used, see what the need is. And I think it's meeting the need out there.
It definitely needs to be paved, that's for sure.
Do you want to see the photos? Because it's pretty awful. These are from March, but you can see how it's unpaved, it's unplowable. This is supposed to be paved. This was at one time paved. And it still looks like this now. It's practically impassable.
Yeah, I'd go for it, especially if we have the state paying 2/3 of it right now. Might as well take advantage of it.
The next step is we have to go to the Board of Selectmen and ask them to receive the funds from the state. So we'll have to write a memo to them saying that we'd like to move forward with this project and request that they receive the funds. So one of you may have to attend that meeting just to because they want to hear it from the resident, not from staff.
Okay, so we want to vote this.
Yep, so you want to vote to expend up to $25,000 for the paving of Watson Park.
Not to exceed.
Yep.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to expend $25,000 for paving at Watson Park.
Second,
seconded by Justin. Roll call vote. Tom Beals,
Yes.
Dan Clark,
Yes.
Justin Dufresne,
yes.
Diane Goldner,
yes,
Todd Helwig.
yes,
I vote yes.
Thank you.
All right. Consideration of the town's right of first refusal for both 429 and 432 Whitney Street upon withdrawal from 61. Open Space dealt with this, was it last week, Dan, or the week before? Recently. Dan and me were both at that meeting, so and did everybody receive a copy of the letter? There's also a letter on that. So questions, comments to talk about, do we want to recommend some sort of action or inaction on, let's start with 429 Whitney Street. I mean, that's the one we know about, right? That's the one that's had the violations before it and all that.
And the Board of Selectmen is looking for some type of memo or letter of recommendation from you.
I mean, my 2 cents on 429 says, I mean, that's not something I'd be interested in getting involved with as a resident of the town of Northborough.
Yeah, I can tell you the Open Space Committee had the same conclusion, that we thought it wasn't worth, we'd pass, I guess, and not recommend pursuing the right of first refusal on that parcel.
I mean, we have there's P&Ss in place for both parcels. Is that correct?
That's right. The town, there's purchase and sales on both. The town received copies of them. It's with Lincoln Properties, and they're both on contingencies that they would have 100,000 square foot warehouses on each one. And at 429, there's an opportunity for additional square footage. Anything beyond the 100,000 is an additional $12 for the purchase price, up to 2.1 million.
For me, I'm a hard no on both.
Okay, let's deal with 429 to start.
I'm a hard no on 429.
Okay.
I'm gonna share the location just to make sure everyone knows. This is the one to the north. There's the 2 parcels. The one in green is 429. As you're driving out of town towards Berlin, it's on the left between 2 Steeris buildings. Steeris now owns both of these. And then this across the street is 432. 429 is the more altered site, historic fill, and ongoing litigation with the state.
Yeah, I think most of us on the commission know the sites pretty well. So, all right, any discussion on 429?
I have to agree with Todd. I'm good with 2 warehouses there.
On 429?
Either one of them. I don't think we should purchase either one.
Well, my feeling is I'm against, I think 429 would be foolish. I'm not really enthralled about 432 for a number of reasons on that one. I don't think it's a great piece of property for recreation. I mean, I've walked the site half a dozen times. It's not a great location for trails. There is some, it is close to some existing resource areas, but I mean, those could be protected even through an NOI process. And it's industrial zoned. I mean, that's industrial zoned. So anyway, but that's my 2 cents on 432. I think we should probably separate the discussions. So 429. We have 4. Dan, you're 429 negative, right?
Yeah, I think we should pass on that one.
So 429, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Diane, how do you feel about 429?
I can't say it on TV. I wouldn't vote for it either.
I didn't catch the whole thing.
I said I would not vote for it.
Okay. Justin?
No, definitely not 429. And I'm in the same boat, I think, as you guys with 432. Also, I mean, I think we'll get to it, but it's industrial zone land that's in a location where trucks can't even cross a bridge to get onto Whitney Street. So we can't really get much better industrial zone land that trucks can't even drive through our neighborhoods. So for me, I think I'd rather see both of them go to warehouse, to tell you the truth.
Any comments on 432? We know where several commissioners stand.
I actually disagree. I actually think if you just look at the sort of the value of that piece of property as open space or conservation area, I think it does actually have some value. So it's sort of ignoring what it may or may not cost or what just the things it could provide, I think it does have some value. I think it's relatively large, which is somewhat unusual for the town of Northborough. It abuts existing open space, so it would add to that already existing footprint. Provides some habitat protection and some wildlife corridors, that type of thing. So I don't agree that it necessarily should be dismissed. That's my opinion.
What's the existing open space that, and I watched part of the meeting. I wasn't clear on what the other open space that it's abutting is.
Back here.
All those parcels to the south.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Oh, so the pieces by the highway then are, who owns those?
The state.
State.
Okay.
You know, even if the back portion of that, I don't think, they're gonna be able to do anything with. It's gonna be warehouse in the front. And a lot of around the swamp and the pond that are there, they're not gonna be able to do anything with, so. And considering the grief that we have received from the owner, I don't think the town should pay him anything.
Factor two for sure.
I agree with Dan that this has better merit, maybe as open space.
Was this on the open space plan?
Yes. This is one of the property. I mean, anything that was open, we have a list of priority properties.
Or anything that was chapter land?
Yep.
So this was this anywhere, was this on a priority list of any kind?
It was, they keep a spreadsheet of all the properties that if they go on the market, that we should immediately reach out to the homeowner. And that's why before we received the purchase and sales and the notice to withdraw, the Open Space Committee actually commissioned an appraisal on 432 because we weren't sure if we were ever going to get that purchase and sale and the withdrawal notice. So they moved forward with evaluating whether or not they wanted to buy it.
Yeah. I mean, the issue is what is the best use of that property? And the best use of that property is probably for a warehouse and an industrial zone that generates tax value. It's already got industrial properties on one side. It's abutted by a interstate on one side, almost, and a railroad. I mean, it doesn't get much. And to Jason's point, you can't even cross the bridge with trucks. It just seems ideal for the use that they want to do with it. And we can't go buying everything that somebody wants to oppose a warehouse.
I mean, go ahead, Diane, sorry.
So one of the things that in that piece of property, I'm looking across the street to 429, apparently it attracts larger animals. As we've had, or there have been reports of bears, plural, and at least one moose coming into the neighborhood where I live. I hate to see it become another warehouse. They're so ugly, but everybody should have their point of view taken into consideration.
So it sounds like that we have 6 votes here tonight. It sounds like the commission is 6-0 in terms of pursuing 429, and is 4-2 for against pursuing 432. That's with Dan and Diane comprising those two. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, Mia, the Board of Selectmen was looking for a letter from us, right? So we just simply, I think, need to state that in the letter, is that the Conservation Commission met, discussed both properties, was unanimous in not pursuing 429, and had a majority vote of 4-2 to not pursue 432. That would indicate that it wasn't unanimous.
Should I mention anything about the dissent, like say 4-2, that 4 of the members did not wish to pursue the purchase due to XYZ and 2 dissented due to XYZ? Do you want to list anything like that?
Might as well.
Okay. So as far as the opposition, so far I drafted the beginning of a memo, and I had written, the town does not exercise, also the conservation voted unanimously to recommend the town does not exercise the right of first refusal at 429 Whitney Street. And Open Space had written, due to lack of conservation values and risk associated with possible contamination. Would you agree with that, or do you want me to say something different?
No, I think that
Covers it.
covers it.
429 is more contaminated than 432, but
Yes.
I think, that for 429, if there's an opportunity for conservation restriction with whoever purchases it, for the unusable property in the back, I'd rather pursue it that way and try to get a restriction on part of it than purchasing it.
At 432?
I'm sorry, yeah, 432.
you're talking the one with the piles of cranberries and chickens, or just the ones with the piles of emaciated animals?
Yeah.
You're talking about 432, the one that's nearest to the existing warehouses, the right-hand side going over the bridge.
Correct.
On the right.
Yes. Yeah, I think there's probably a good opportunity for, a conservation restriction with whoever purchases that. Like we did with Gutierrez, they put in quite a bit of acreage, into conservation restriction to develop the property.
I would think that if the movement, if 432 becomes developed, that we would have an opportunity to ensure that the resources are protected.
Correct.
Yeah, if any CPC money is spent on either of them, then a conservation restriction would be required. And it would be, some CPC would be used.
I don't think CPC, the Open Space Committee wasn't really keen on spending any of that 400 grand on these properties. Is that fair, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly discussed the potential cost and sort of left that up to the town to decide where the money would actually come from.
Okay. So what are the reasons you wish to recommend that they don't purchase 432?
Well, I'll give you my 2 cents here. Limited recreational value. The fact that it's an industrial zone already, I don't know how you phrase that. It should be
The best use, the highest and best use of that property where it's located is for an industrial use.
I think maybe implying there's something to that, the fact that we can, if it is developed, Conservation Commission could still ensure protection of natural resources through our notice of intent process or some verbiage there.
Because I think there is a lot that we can do, right? There's a perennial stream in the back, right?
I think so.
On 432, it might be, oh, we can check, hang on.
Yes, there is.
I mean, that whole back portion, once they come to us, I mean, if it's, undisturbed buffer to that, within that riverfront area, we could basically, protect the whole bunch of the back side of that site. Find it hard to believe they'll get 100,000 square feet on there, but I don't know. I just think there is opportunities with conservation restrictions and things like that once somebody comes to us to be able to protect, a decent amount of that site.
This is the location of a perennial stream on the USGS, and the edge of the property is about 200 feet away, but there are wetlands on the stream as well. I mean, on the site, the whole front.
A lot of wetlands on the property.
Yep, and a lot of buffer in the back.
Yeah, I thought there was another one that ran through. You can see where those contours kind of bend up near that 75, but maybe that's just intermittent that comes through the site kind of towards the railroad. I think there might be maybe a little stream. You can kind of see where the drainage kind of comes from that spot on the left side of the railroad. There's like a low spot to the left of your cursor, Mia, where the railroad heads up, or the aqueduct kind of heads up to the north. There's like a fingernail looking pocket, and then it bleeds through the site directly through the corner of the site, which I think is intermittent. Yeah, right through there. So there'll be a buffer zone off of that, I'm sure. And then the wetlands that show up on this map. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of the site that they can't develop.
Do you have enough, Mia, to write that up, or?
I'd like to run it by you. Let's see. Because they're meeting, the board of selectmen are going to be meeting August 23rd, next Monday, so we do have to get this to them.
Yep.
So the first paragraph is just that you consider the town's right of first refusal upon exit from the Chapter 621 program at your August 16th meeting. Conservation Commission voted unanimously to recommend that the town does not exercise the right of first refusal at 429 Whitney Street due to lack of conservation values and risk associated with possible contamination. And that's in line with what Open Space said. The Conservation Commission had a majority vote of 4-2 to recommend the town does not exercise the right of first refusal at 432 Whitney Street due to limited recreational value. The highest and best use is for an industrial use as zoned. And if developed, the Conservation Commission maybe feels it will still be able to protect wetland resource areas through the required permit process under the state and local wetlands laws. And then the dissenting commissioners wished to express they felt the property at 432 Whitney Street could provide the town with valuable open space, buffer between residential and industrial zones, and possible habitat protection value.
That's good.
Works for me. Everybody else feel okay with that?
Yep, it's fine.
Does this sound okay? That due to limited recreational value, I would say that, or they felt the highest and best use is for an industrial use as zoned. And if developed, the Conservation Commission feels it, I think I'm going to make that, well, no, it's a long sentence. And if developed, the Conservation Commission feels it will still be able to protect wetland resource areas through the required permit process under the state and local wetland laws. Very long sentence.
Yeah, you can break that up over. You can see how that looks tomorrow and just break that up. I mean, as long as you maintain the intent, you're fine.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Want to add anything? Move anything?
Dan and Diane, you okay with that, what it says?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Right. Speaking of purchases, what are we still with the ATV purchase?
I've been emailing towns, doing the busy work. I've heard back from a lot, and just as we thought, it's all over the board. All sorts of different size. I mean, most people couldn't, they're like, you really want me to tell you how many acres and how many miles we have? And I was like, no. Just so you have one's enough. Pretty much everybody has one. It comes in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. Sometimes they use the police, sometimes they use the fire departments. There's one guy who's just like a part-time land manager it's for Stowe. He's covered under the police's insurance. He just goes and picks it up once a month, loads it up with his gear, and goes and does maintenance and inspections once a month for a day. Other agencies and towns just use them regularly. Other agencies are like, I want one too. So, how are you getting one? I'm like, well, don't copy us yet. We haven't gotten it yet. So it's all over the board.
So it's still sitting on John's desk.
It's on my desk now because I have to formulate these answers. Kathy had given me a short list of towns to make sure I got responses from. And I think I've gotten responses from 5 towns that I have to write up. And then I have to follow up and make sure I got those 2 or 3 that she really wanted to get answers from.
Have you spoke to Chief Liver?
Yeah, I mean, he's still on board with it.
You should try and get some input from him because, you know, he has some influence, I would think, in the office.
Yeah, when I had written up that he was still on board, and before I send the letter, I just want to call him and be like, because the last he and I spoke, he was considering just buying one. Yeah, he's like, if I can find the money, I'm just going to buy one myself. So we're just each moving forward, and when, you know, I'll try to draft something, get all the final responses. I mean, I knew it was going to take me forever because I'm just straight out. It's construction season and it's busy work. So, but I am starting to get the responses.
It's unfortunate because I think it was Todd or somebody said at a meeting that, you know, there was a request to expand the Smith Road parking lot. And I think that was talking about, well, if we can't protect what we have now, why do we want to try and encourage an expansion of that? That's a pretty valid point. So
I got the first month of data I did put up trail cameras a month and a half ago. And last week I got them and I looked at how often the parking lot is full, and it's not every day. So it's mostly weekends. Every Sunday morning, it's just up. That's when it's really every Sunday, as long as it's not raining, it's up and down the street. So trying to start tallying that, see if it's really needed. The most I've seen is 3 cars in each direction. So that's six additional parking spaces. That's not a huge expansion.
Busier than the town common.
Mm-hmm. And it's not 20 cars. It's just 6.
Quick question. Did you get a chance to review for tree cutting or violations in the brook?
The brook, which I went up.
Stone lining the edge of the brook and.
Oh, that I've given up on that.
Okay.
I spent a lot of time, that stupid pond. Oh, I hate that thing. It's a mosquito. You walk into a swarm of mosquitoes. It's terrible. And it's we're calling it the Johnson Trail. It connects the loop to the Sparrow Trail. It is highly used. So the Trails Committee blazed it and named it. And there is stonework along there, along Howard Brook. And I spent a significant amount of time. I bought a crowbar, a nice big crowbar, and I broke it all up at least 3 times, pushed everything downhill. They pushed it all back uphill and rebuilt it. Someone has a lot of time.
Okay, I was just curious. We don't have a trail camera there.
We could put one there. Do you want to try to find out and I could break it up again and we could see who's rebuilding it? That's a good idea. I'd love to find out who's doing it. It's very pretty. I hate that pond. It's just full of mosquito larvae. I don't know why people do it. So I don't think I have any more trail cameras. I'll have to move one from somewhere else.
You haven't picked up any other activity in regards to tree cutting or something like that, right?
No, and you know what? I'll take the one from the south view. The south view, I have 2 cameras up there, and I have one pointing right at that place where the mountain bikes used to go right off the front, and they killed all the scrub oak. It's completely grown back in. It's beautiful. We even
Talked
have
about this. It's
clover.
because they put it on the other side.
I can't find it. I went up there and looked for this other side. I can't find it. You mean
I'll-
like in Berlin?
No, it's if you're standing on the looking out over the view,
Mhm.
to the immediate right is the existing trail that goes down the hill that's too steep, right?
Mhm.
To the right of that is the new trail that goes around the side back down to the Fisher Trail. It is the best constructed trail in the area by far.
So I'm standing on the south view looking into Boston, and you're saying to the left,
Staying to the right.
to the right. Because the old one was to the right,
Yep.
and it was like a drop off. You're saying
I
now there's
know.
a new trail
I
to
know
the right.
exactly where the one was that you blocked off.
Okay,
And so that was the first one on the right, was the illegal first trail. Then
okay.
there's the one on the map that's supposed to be there. And then the new one is to the right of that.
Okay. No, I still haven't found it.
It's not the end of the world, but but to your point, they did a really nice job. I mean, they put up rock embankments so that when they hit the edges, they don't erode it out, they don't fall off. It's nicely done.
Pull up the trail map and you can show me. Smith.
Well, I think we're gonna just push the expansion of the parking lot down the line for now.
I suppose so. I mean, we have to wait. I'll get more data on the parking area.
I haven't seen it as full as it was in the spring.
Yeah, it's since the sort of the vaccination and people can go out in the world again. There's been less usage. That's been my experience.
Okay, so let me see if you can help me find it. So this is the south overlook.
Yeah.
At the topo. I get too busy. It's kind of busy. So they all come together here. So you're saying over here to the right, there's a new trail?
Yeah, you see how it doesn't go straight down the hill. It comes over the flat spot, right? And then you got it right down there and then curves around where the contours are down to there. Yep.
Down here.
Down there and then goes towards I'm going to say east, back towards the Fisher Trail. Or the Berlin Road Trail, I guess is what it is there.
Okay. I'll have to go check it out. I haven't found it. I did walk down this way. I try to go in one way, like I come in Tyler and go out Berlin Road.
Yeah, it's not far from where the intersection with the Vernal Pool Trail is.
Okay. But there's no erosion?
No, looks good. It's a hell of a lot better than the one that we did.
Okay.
I don't know how we can, stop them from doing it, so. Unless, of course, we revisit not allowing mountain bikes on Mount Pisgah.
So there's
Like
a
I
lot of
said,
mountain bikers.
It seems calmer though than it has been.
People are going back to work.
Okay,
Said it
what
connects
else?
to Fisher.
What else you got, me, or anything exciting?
No, so I'll keep collecting the parking lot data. I'll formulate a response to the town administrator's email regarding all the use of neighboring towns and their ETBs. Let me take a look at the agenda, see if I missed
That's
anything.
it on the agenda, other than any correspondence or any other business. We already had that tree cutting discussion.
Mhm.
So
Next.
I'm just curious if there would be any option for putting out a request for a donation of a ATV for the conservation and the police department.
Can always do that.
I mean, we could list it on our website and just see if there's, somebody out there that might be willing to donate one.
Maybe somebody has one that they've stopped using or is in reasonably good shape.
I don't think the cost was the issue, was it?
No, it's not the cost. And Trails Committee tried to buy a used lawnmower and the town took issue with it because it didn't have a warranty. So I'm not sure if we could get a used ATV because then, we still have to license it and insure it and maintain it.
So educate me, if it's not the cost issue, is it political?
It sounds political.
That is-
It sounds like it's,
right.
with the police department, not with us.
All right. So anyway, so moving on. September 13th, anybody have any known conflicts?
No,
Vacation season's mostly over. Oh, it is the best time of the year in the Cape. That's okay. We can deal with that. So, yes. All right. Anything else coming up? We've got continuations for next week. Next month, we still have 0 Hudson, 161 Church, the one from tonight, 89 School. That should be fairly
We've already
short and
got 4.
sweet.
And we've got a 5th, 190 Howard Street. That came in. I had to ask for a waiver of the 21-day requirement because it came in just the end of last week. It's for a pasture.
And is West Street gonna be ready? Is the water main on West Street will be ready for next month?
They said they will be. I haven't received anything yet.
Right. Anybody else have anything they want to bring up? Any observations or? Okay,
No.
good. Then we need a motion to adjourn, unless Mia has anything. You always have the last say, Mia.
No, thanks. I don't have anything.
All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
By Todd Hellweek, Tom Beals,
Yes.
Dan Clark,
Yes.
Justin Dufresne,
Yes.
Diane Goldner,
yes.
Todd Hellweek.
yes.
I vote yes. Very good.